Rich trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease. Score!
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Hoagie.
What's not to love?
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
And
Sounded enthusiastic.
Old man John's here.
My enthusiasm is out the window.
maybe the rest of us will get a word in edgewise tonight.
No, probably not.
Here's the hoping. Anyways, Hoagie, what's up, man?
What's going on, boys?
And Casey.
Hey, how's it going? Hoagie, you doing all right? I feel like you were late because you were paying respects to the Queen or something. You doing okay?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Screw
You're all
Royals.
broken up about that? All right.
What's with the hair under the hat thing? You got like a 1990s, like,
Oh, boy. Look at that mop.
Just buzz it already.
What the world?
Sore subject, but I love it.
Goodness. Oh, my.
Guarantee you're the only one who says that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, speaking of saying things, we've got a lot to talk about in terms of the comments that I'm sure everybody listening right now has heard from John Tortorella. We've got some analysis from Friedman, too, that I kind of want to dive into also. And that's pretty much it. So
We're creeping up on real news. We're
We are
creeping up.
creeping up on real news.
Like
A
the
little bit under
flies in my
2 weeks.
basement. We're creeping up on real news.
Little under 2 weeks left until some preseason games here, so that's good news. We'll actually have some fresh stuff to talk about instead of this. But regardless, this will be an interesting conversation based off of what John Tortorella said the other day, as well as Elliot Friedman, what he had mentioned on the 32 Thoughts podcast as well. But to kind of shed some light on this as well, I'm sure everybody's heard it, but in terms of the quote, we'll start something small, I guess, that we can kick off. Tortorella in his comments said that he is in no rush to name a captain here. And I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to any of us. Correct?
Not at all.
Confirmed.
Right? There we go. So, I mean, nothing more really to discuss there. Let's be honest.
I mean, I guess we'll say like
If there is.
no. I will say that I'm glad he's taken that stance. Like, I would have been more concerned if he did name a captain. It's like, dude, it's like spend a day in that locker room for God's sakes. And so I'm glad he's not rushing to it. But besides that, I got nothing else.
No, it's a good stance to take considering he's new to the team. What is the leadership of this team? So I like a longer eval period. I'll take the however long it's going to take to try to figure out who's going to captain this team.
I would have loved it if he was like Slick Nick DeLaurier.
Could you
Big
imagine?
acquisition taking the captain.
Double down on Gritty. He's like, well, give me Gritty to see. You guys, that's all you guys want to see anyway. Just like annihilate the rest of the fan.
Oh my God.
At that point, just give him the Bristow.
Come for throwback night.
The folks that thought it was unbearable as is. Imagine. But anyways, again, great. No rush to name him captain. Cool. Awesome. What really got a lot of people's feathers ruffled here was the quote that he said following that. He addressed two questions all in the same breath really here. But the quote that he says, and we'll go kind of a bit verbatim here and break it down as we go, but he goes, quote, "As far as the room, I have major concerns about the room. I spent the summer going back and forth. I live in New York, going back and forth between Philly, trying to relocate there, but spent some time in the office talking to players, talking to personnel, talking to Chuck, all the front office. I have major concerns about what goes on in there. And before we even step on the ice, the situations and standards and accountability in the room is forefront. Now, I'm going to end that quote there. There's still a bit more to it. I want to dissect this because the first big thing, obviously, the glaring statement that he makes, I have major concerns about the room. Does that come as a shock to anyone here?
Join the club. But like I do think, and maybe I'm alone here on this one, but like there's been such negativity surrounding this team that I don't necessarily know if I love the bringing it to light. I think the fan in me is kind of like, yeah, right, we need this guy who's going to attack this head on. But I think the more and more that I thought about it, I was like, I just wish, like, yeah, we all know there's problems with the room, but I just wish we weren't talking about it with the public and we were just more focused on fixing it, mainly because there's just already so much crap surrounding this team. I would rather no publicity, I guess, at this point.
Now, could you argue, though, while, maybe to this extent it hasn't been brought up, but like we've heard Chuck say, like, culture needs to change, this and that, but it was always more of a political answer, more of a, well, like, you know, we're doing what we can to try to figure that, like, all that BS. This was Torch straight out saying there's an issue and it needs to be fixed. So the severity of the statement that he makes, I think, is the big thing here, where it's a definitive, there's an issue. I have major concerns about it. Your thoughts on that, Casey?
Yeah, I look at it one of two ways. One is he's using it, rightly so, to light a fire under the team's ass through the press, which, hey, good for him. Use the press to tell the story for you. And you don't think every single one of those players has read that quote or heard that quote 100 times in the last 48 hours? You know, they better know that they need to show up correct. And if not, there's a new sheriff in town there. Number two, the other direction is, maybe he just, I don't know, maybe he legit has heard some just weird stuff that's gone on in there that is really unsettling. I can't imagine an NHL locker room where, like, you know what they're doing, sticks and gloves helmets and gloves in the middle of the locker room to figure out who gets the first Gatorade or something. Like,
Lott shows in with a kilo of salamanders.
I like when I'm like, there's a problem with the room. It's like, what is it? Is it tilted? Like, what's going on? But I think
the lighting.
I think, I don't think there's like bullying, like, who was that dude from the Dolphins, that red-haired friggin' juggernaut who looked
Richie Incognito.
Like, I don't think there's that stuff going on. I think it's more so of there's almost a lack of that going on. There's not enough accountability. There's not enough vocal leaders in there. But I personally think that he's using it to light a fire and just set the stage for a training camp that is going to be grueling. And, like, from all of us fans, it's like, hey, you didn't work last year, you're going to work this year. Get ready, boys.
So
he says as much there with the standards and accountability in that quote. Like, that was a big major concern of his. So, I mean, he goes kind of into it and states why he thinks there's concerns like the standards, the accountability, after talking with the front office with Chuck. So he did touch on that a little bit.
But I think, and now, Casey, I know you were just kind of focused in on the players, but I took that comment as more than just the players. I took that comment as, like, there's a problem all around. I mean, I think, and I might be wrong here, but doesn't he also mention something about, like, the medical staff when he's in that conversation as well? Like, his conversation went beyond just the playing aspect of it. I think
that might be a different conversation, but I think I know what you're talking about. It wouldn't be from this quote directly, but from another.
Well, I think it might have been the same conversation, just maybe a different part of it. But like, it was a shot to me, and a rightful shot. Again, I just kind of go back and forth on whether or not I really want it public, but I think it was a shot at the entire organization. Like, y'all just F this up from top to bottom.
You guys are ass.
I mean,
sorry, Hoagie's here too. I forgot. Hoagie?
What are your thoughts on these statements, Hoagie?
I mean, obviously the locker room problem has always been a glaring problem to us. And I thought we had been addressing it with names being shipped out as Voracek and people like that. I'm surprised that it's still kind of around, because I thought those names kind of were like the major part of it. And I was hoping, maybe maybe we're on the up and up here with a different locker room, different coach. But it's pretty glaring to Tortorella that that's not the case with certain names that have been shipped out. So I think it's kind of like a divide in the room in a way where they're not all on the same page. They all want to kind of be the superstars or do this or do that. And I think we need to kind of get back to like that good old boys club where we're all pals. And
careful saying that.
Yeah, I know. But like, a hockey club, you're all brothers. You're all here to do it. Like, let's get you up and go.
Yeah, that made it better. Giddy up.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing that sticks out for me is the fact that he mentioned specifically Chuck, the front office. Like, not saying like, hey, I stepped foot in the room and I have major concerns about it. He went in depth saying, again, I've talked to the players, I've talked to the personnel, I've talked to the front office, Chuck, everybody. This isn't just, there's an issue with the players. There's an issue with the dynamic on ice. He mentioned specifically everybody. So that to me is even more concerning than if you were to come out and say something like I've got an issue with the way the players are holding themselves accountable. I've got an issue with, the room right now as is with the players. Like, singling out the players is one thing, but talking about everybody, like, that's a bigger issue, because he even goes on to say, you can't get squat done on the ice until you get the room straightened out, and mentioning that there needs to be work to be done. There is work to be done there. So, taking that quote and really, we've been dissecting it obviously, but like, I look at it as Torts had the time to do his due diligence in speaking with everybody, not from top to bottom there, players, personnel, front office, everybody. And he's concluded it's a science experiment. He's concluded there's issues. I mean, I take everything at face value here, what he says. Like, I think that, yes, but like, is Tortorella going to be given the option to fix that?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because obviously anything locker, like when we're talking about the room being like the locker room and the team, right? Yes, like he has control over that, but what kind of say does he have in terms of management or, personnel outside of like the players? Or so it is really interesting, because if he sees it as a problem, but the people above him aren't doing anything about it, like we're still in an issue. Added an issue.
But I will say all he has to say is this thing is affecting the play on the ice. And it could be appearances. It could be fucking Gritty hitting the gong thing beforehand. Sorry, I already dropped the F-bomb. But like, it could be anything. Like, he might not control it, but he has the trump card, be like, it's distracting our guys on the ice. Can't have it done. And so like, he does have control. It's not ultimate control, but he has control of what comes in and what comes out of that locker room, and ultimately what goes in and what goes out of the play on the ice.
You bring up a fantastic point, because it really is all in the cell to the front office. You got to put it in a way that it's like, hey, this is going to affect your pockets, because a bad team on the ice doesn't translate to you making money.
Right.
Now, conversely, if it is PR stuff, they can say, hey, if our guys aren't visible to the community, we have even less of a fan base than we do now. And so there's like there's a dance that needs to happen with all of this. But, I do think it's interesting that he sort of mentioned Chuck, and I think it also kind of plays to like, Chuck, how come you couldn't have been this guy? How come you couldn't have been the bad guy to come in and really like rip this thing to shreds?
Well, you see in the manual,
it
says in 1D.
Just leave me alone with my abacus and let Torts do the on ice stuff.
Let's be honest too. Like, I feel like
Chuck's
probably trying to save face at this point. Like, Chuck wants to try to bring this franchise back from the shithole that it's dug itself. So if Torts has to be the bad guy, I'd kind of rather Torts be the bad guy, because he can play that role and play it well to a point where he's kind of the good guy.
Right. Yeah. And plus, not to mention
Dark Knight.
He's not the hero. What's the saying? The hero you want or the hero you need, whatever. Yeah.
That's definitely what it is.
He can be your hero, baby.
Get busy living, get busy dying. Is that where we're getting at?
Yeah, I don't know. Something about,
Would you dance?
Life's a box of chocolates.
If I asked you to dance.
No, but we said this on this show before, and I think it echoes a lot of fans' thoughts. Is if you look at the front office, including the coach, like Torts isn't the first one out the door if the team goes on a losing streak,
Right?
Like he is. So he has a lot of leverage in this situation right now. In a weird way, he's probably going to be saving Chuck's ass if things go well.
Right.
So.
And you have to figure too. You have to figure like when these interviews are happening and Tortorella takes the job, he must be saying, listen, in order for this to work, you have to allow me freedom to kind of handle things my way. Freedom. And the fact that like he's able to mention Chuck and anybody else, like it makes me think that like his opinion and everything matters within the organization right now. So.
And he doesn't care. I mean, he'll name drop these guys. Like if it were a problem where we get halfway through the season and it's like, hey, it's just throwing a name out there, nothing, no sources, nothing. Hey, it's Konechny. Konechny's the issue. Why you gotta
call out Konechny like that?
He's the one I would suspect. Regardless.
Right, yeah. No sources or anything he couldn't go for like, it's Owen Tippett.
Yeah, like it's Owen Tippett. It's that redhead,
It's Morgan Frost.
All right, let's say, hey guys, it's Zach McEwen. Like Zach McEwen's the guy. We need to get him out of here. He's the big divide in the locker room. What's Chuck going to do? Is Chuck going to say, no, John, you're wrong? Like, let's just take our time with this. Chuck's probably going to be like, okay, John, like let's figure something out. Either we bump him back down to Lehigh Valley or we try to ship him out.
Sorry, are we just ignoring the fact that John just got up for a water break?
I was thirsty.
So you haven't talked much. It's not like you need it.
I just watched that whole thing. So sorry, Derek, your question. I was so distracted by that whole scenario.
Yeah.
No, I just we could talk about it all night and beat the horse to death after it's already dead. But I also wanted to touch on the fact that Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts podcast as well kind of not necessarily elaborated, but went on about the start of camp here coming up and his take on what's going on, because he had mentioned that he heard that players were warned, you better show up ready to go, which you'd expect with any camp.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong in that assumption?
No, but I think there's like a being told to do it and then actually being held accountable to do it.
Sure.
So I think there's a difference there, but proceed.
Yeah. He said it's not going to be a situation where they're going to be able to tiptoe into camp, which again, duh. But the thing that struck me, and I kind of wanted to get into this as a talking point here, he had said that he heard from one of the players, which I'm assuming would be one of the Flyers here, the other day, according to him, that was basically warned, if you aren't ready to go, you're going to be left behind. No hesitation to leave anybody behind. And I'll get right down to it. My biggest concern with that statement is that there are players or a player reaching out to people like Elliot Friedman talking about what's going on. Like, that right there to me says they're not focused. Like, they're like, oh, here's what's going on. Like, no, I don't want you talking to anybody in the media unless it's a press conference or, after the game, you're speaking to reporters. I don't need you going and leaking this type of stuff to a guy like Elliot Friedman, who's known to break news. You say one wrong thing and it's everywhere, So
let me throw this out there. What if it was Tortorella that leaked it out to him?
Maybe it could be. But he specifically says it's a player. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe it is Tortorella. I don't know. Only Elliot Friedman knows. But if I can take that at face value and say that it was a player, that is a big concern to me. John's pensive over here.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't look too much into it, because I think like that really could mean anything. Like, it could mean, that a player, a guy on the Flyers was talking to a buddy who's on another team, and then he goes and says something to Elliot Friedman. Maybe it's, somebody who did play, who's now a part of the training staff, or, and also sometimes Elliot Friedman just says things.
I don't know. What's the exact quote again? Can you read it again?
He said, I heard from one of the players the other day that they were basically warned that if you aren't ready to go, you're going to be left behind. We will have no hesitation leaving people behind.
I don't see any harm whatsoever in that being leaked. I understand your concern that, that's not a tight ship. Like, guess what? It's not a tight ship anyway. I'd rather have that stuff getting out and having people be like, oh, crap, what is going on? And then be like, all right, who actually leaked it? Who is it? Like, and ultimately, what's the point of all of this? And you see this in all of, in the in Miracle. It's like, all right, who's the common enemy? Common enemy is Herb Brooks until it's Russia, and then it's been Russia ever since. But everybody wants the.
One would argue it
common
was
enemy
Russia
there.
before then too.
I gotta watch Miracle again tonight.
Yep.
Torts is he's trying to get these guys so jacked up in their head that they better come in rearing to go. And I've also heard, we've heard from some people that, they've been given a body weight percentage that they need to come in at. And if not, then that could be considered left behind, quote unquote.
Right.
So,
Who was the player that came out and said that Tortorella runs that type of camp where they measure body fat index or whatever it is? There was a player that came out and said, like,
I wouldn't be
Tortorella
shocked.
sent me home.
I wouldn't be shocked if it's Hartnell, quite frankly.
I don't think it was
didn't
hard.
Atkinson say something today? Like, it's Tortorella's camp is just torture camp. Like, that's all it is.
Mike
Just
Rupp
drag.
actually on NHL Tonight said that. He's like, they'd call it Camp Tortorella because it was the most right. And I'm like, that's so catchy.
It's perfect.
You know? But he said that it was the most demanding training camp he's ever been a part of. And I hope that's the case.
And again, I go back. Justin Braun might actually die. Might actually die.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. He might die through
Torture.
camp.
Just can't handle this torture. I don't know why he sounds like that, but he just looks like he
Buddy,
does.
I'm 36 years old. Come on.
So can I go back to this left behind thing?
Absolutely.
Because listen, I think it's great for the media. It's great to talk about, but what the does left behind even meant? Because if you truly think about this, right? I think we've talked about it. Everybody else has it. If players are not kind of up to standard, the Flyers are going to part ways with them. How? Like, if Travis Konechny has a down year again, or Ivan Provorov has a down year again, and they can't seem to mesh under John Tortorella's system because they're not keeping up. What team is taking them at a value that the Flyers can handle? Like, I just think that, like, this whole idea of being left behind is really great for the dramatics, but I question, like, what we can really do if some of these players don't pan out. Now, granted, I'm sure you can still get something for these guys, but like a value where the Flyers feel comfortable, I doubt it. So I just worry that it's like this whole, we're going to cut them loose when really the only options to cut loose are really JVR and Sanheim, and then everybody else is still on.
Use that same frame of mind, though, when thinking about this. So you're going to say, the type of guys they're going to leave behind, nobody's going to want. What's the risk in putting them on waivers then? If no one's going to want them, are you going to pick Konechny up off waivers for 5.5?
Right?
You get cap space. And think about how crucial that is right now.
But then if nobody picks him up, you've severely damaged your relationship with a player who's making like $5 million, 5+, right, for the next some years. I just think it's not as simple as like,
have you
better
damaged it
show
or have
up.
you lit that fire? It's like,
Putting
dude,
them
catch
on
up.
waivers?
I mean, think about it.
That sounds ridiculous. Wait a minute. Shane Goss is bear. Shit.
Right. Yeah, we already did it.
I mean, I see where you're coming from in terms of, a fractured relationship potentially, but if you're any type of athlete, that needs to be used as motivation. Like, you got left behind and these are the consequences. Now build it back up, pick your ass up,
right,
and let's go.
I'm just worried with
get your ass out there and find that fucking dog.
I'm just worried with this mentality where it's like, if they can't be what this new Flyers culture is going to be, everybody's just like, well, we'll just trade them. Because I do think that, like, you have to realize these are players with term whose value is diminishing. Right.
I mean, granted, we've always been saying that, like, player doesn't do well, trade him, get rid of him. Like, we've said that for years now. Like, I think this statement is mainly just to get the fan base riled up and ready for the season. You know, God forbid JVR has a crappy camp. Let's just get rid of him. I mean,
well, he's one you could potentially, as the season rolls along.
As the season rolls along, probably not.
Don't think I won't do it. He does it to JVR and Braun, you know.
Right, but we're not going to do it right out of camp. Like 10 games in, we're not trading players right away. It rarely happens.
You put them on the bench. You know, they have 10 games and they suck. You put them on the bench for a little bit, and then you know somebody gets hurt, somebody else sucks. You're like, all right, man, let's show us what you learned after your benching. You know, it's
limit ice time.
No, I think that's the way to look at it. Like, I get your point completely, and then like, when in a high school world, it's like you're going to JV, pal, and you're going to sit there and ride the bench. Like, that's just not the way this is going to work. But you know, if Kevin Hayes doesn't cut it, guess who goes down to 3C?
Right,
and like, as well, he probably should. But like, you know,
goes up to 2C.
You know, JVR doesn't play, back on the fourth line for the third time in 4 years. Like, you know, and so I think there's other ways to do it other than trading. You know, there's the ever loved, like, you know, 2 games in the press box to view your game from a different vantage point, you know, kind of thing. But I understand your point. There's only so much you can do because these guys are contract employees.
Right. It's just the dramatics of like left behind. Like,
listen, all season it's going to be dramatic. If Tortorella is your head coach, it's going to be dramatic. No matter what happens, no matter what he says, everybody's going to take it to the extreme.
Again, but it's better than AV going. Yes.
This is Martini's dude.
It's kind of Hart's fault.
Right.
I don't know what that was. That was like a Russian thing.
French Russian.
I think, and again, maybe I overreacted a little bit, but it's still, I mean, even after the conversation, I'm still a bit concerned if I'm taking this report as fact that a player reached out. Like, that's not something I would expect from a guy coming into a camp where everybody's going to have to earn their spot on this roster.
But you also got to keep in mind, you don't just have the starters in there. You have, you know, everyone who's going to be in camp who could potentially be the mole. And, you know, like, it could be somebody that we barely even heard of that said this thing. I don't think it is, but
sure. It's like a Wyatt Wiley.
I also wouldn't put it past that it's like, hey, let's just leak it out that, you know, Torts wants this out there.
Oh, yeah. Everything like that in the media is a game. You know,
Chuck calls, hey, Elliot, I was reading the manual, and it says once in a while to leak juicy things to the press.
No, but
So
he uses the voice discussion is like, Elliot.
This is
an anonymous player.
Not named.
I mean, this is not.
This is Charles.
This is Charles Fletcher. Charles Fletcher.
Call me C. Fletcher for short.
This is Bobby Clark leaking another rumor.
We get another podcast like that, man. This place will go nuts. But no, I did. I just want to touch on this again because of Casey's reaction. I love the fact that Mike Rupp called it Camp Tortorella. Like, I just love that. But that's what we've got to look forward to. Like, this is going to be a really tough camp.
I love the fact that it's still got to be open to the public, too. So, like, you're just going to watch our heroes, just flounder. But, like, you know what? That's what you... I'm sorry, like, two years in a row of this dog crap hockey, like, good.
Literal, because the dog shit on the ice.
Yeah.
I forgot that happened.
Get it done.
I haven't. Right.
Just play hockey. It's so easy.
Right.
Hey.
Put the puck on the stick and vice versa, and then put it in the goal.
It's just passing and shooting. Like, what?
Pass, shoot, score.
That's
America. Pass, shoot, score.
I also think, too, like, once hockey starts, Tortorella's done talking. Like, you know, his media availability, he's got like 5-second answers. He really doesn't provide much, which I'm more looking forward to. Like, I'm ready to just kind of see what the product is on the ice. We've heard so much about how he's going to come in and flip shit upside down and somebody's getting left behind and all that crap. And I'm just done with the dramatic terms. I just want to start seeing it. And like when people are reporting it's because they're seeing it in training camp. Not that he said something.
Right. You know, and this is where it comes down to Tortorella, protecting his guys. That's why the media gives him a bad rap. Like he's protecting them. Like he puts them through hell. And so like, they know that when the media critiques them, he's like, shut up, Poindexter. Like you didn't even, you haven't gone through the bag skates that I put these guys through. And, to stick with the Animal House, kind of theme with Poindexter is, I guess Poindexter is Revenge of the Nerds. Sorry, I got my 80s, 70s movies.
Showing your age there.
But it's like the scene from Animal House where they're like, wait, they can't do that to our pledges. Only we can do that to our pledges. That's like exactly what Tortorella is doing right now.
It's the older brother mentality. Like I'm the only one that can pick on my younger siblings. Like he'll protect his players to world's end, but he'll also be the first person to call somebody out on their BS.
Yep.
I like that mentality though. Like I can relate to that mentality because I've done it with my sisters. So, I mean, you let them hear it.
It's a real treat, yeah.
You guys pick
Sorry you were just on the crappy end of that stick, But I think that bodes well for these players. And if they can buy into that understanding that, I'll catch flack, but I'll also have his support 100% if I'm putting in the effort,
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think, the only other thing.
Well, hey, we have a question from Twitter. If you want to address this
Warren actually asked us a question here. Hoagie, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, Warren goes, which Flyer has the first run-in with Torts?
Good question. I think it's Hayes.
Interesting.
I'm
going Provorov. I'm going Provy, but it ends up well. Ends up good.
I think just because they're two incredibly passionate dudes, I think Tony D'Angelo.
Oh.
Hey, you Johnny, what a Tony! Ah!
Whoa! You said Jim's and not Geno's. Get the fuck out of here. Bafago, you.
Gabagoo.
You're not even from around here, Tortorella.
I think this is a great spot to end this.
Go back to the north end of your mama butts. God, how could I can just picture puppets and Tortorella, D'Angelo, and just somebody coming up with a puppet show of just the two of them yapping on the bench.
Oh my God. I've never seen John laugh this hard.
You passed the puck like you passed your mama cannoli. Terrible.
Are you getting yelled at by your wife right now?
He's yelling at me.
You want the kids up?
Oh my God.
Anyway, Hoagie beat that one.
I don't think I can.
Beat that, you nerd.
I'm going with the most popular answer with Connect Me. I just think he's going to be all over the place and just want to do his own thing and towards something like, bro, listen to me.
Yeah, good one. All good answers. I give Casey's an A+ there. Solely based on.
I was reacting to John's though. I was
John's answer.
Animating John's.
Well, altogether, that's an A+. That's good.
There you go.
That's good. No, good question, Warren.
I mean, can we just start a whole thing this season where it's like this week in Flyers news, and we just do fake arguments? We do Tortorella, D'Angelo in Italian accent. It's like, oh, bow, oh. Turns into like a Batman coming, bow, boo. No, I support the Italians.
I'm done. I can't follow this up. God. Now I gotta come up with a title for this. God.
Pow Pam Poo.
Pow Bam
It was a Pam. I think
Pam.
Pow Pam.
Yeah, what the hell is a Pam? Like, what makes that sound?
I don't know.
Backhand?
I can't carry this show any longer, guys. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Well, I guess for the sake of time,
I just did 5 minutes worth of sound effects to get us over 30 minutes.
we've got to find a way to clip that out as a teaser on Facebook or on Twitter.
Casey has the stuff for it, doesn't he?
Yeah, I can't remember how to do it though. Shit.
Well, time to learn.
Hold on. What was I didn't watch any of the press conference stuff from Cam and Sanheim today. Was there anything notable? Did anybody look at it?
I didn't.
I glanced over it, but I mean, it's your typical stuff. Like, you got to come into camp. It's going to be a harder team to play against. A lot of the stuff that Tortorella touched on when he first had his press conference, and just players reiterating that, which good, cool. I hope they can buy in, but I don't know what else to really add to that. I mean, Atkinson's
not a shock, but what do you put in any stock that Sanheim's the one who got the podium there? That seems a little random to me.
No, I don't think availability is like, hey, we're going to pick the polarizing guys that are going to, the better guys that Tortorella handpicked to go up there. I think it's just kind of like, hey, who wants to do it today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was the team's best defenseman last year.
Fair point.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah. So there you go. I mean,
Couturier
after Provorov's exit interview, do you want him up there?
Yeah, right. But Couturier had some interesting things yesterday to say.
What did he say yesterday?
Mainly, he's trying to get back to being healthy. He wants to prove that he's the player that he was, and touched on like the captaincy thing and the leadership as well, and in regards to like we need guys to step up and be that guy, and he thinks that Torts is going to bring somebody's going to bring that out of themselves with Torts being the head coach.
Mm-hmm. Be interested to hear his actual opinion on that.
You were trying to say.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Like, what does he think? Because I mean, a lot of people dub him as the next captain. Like, what do you think's going through Couturier?
We're talking Delorier. Oh, Couturier. Sorry,
Couturier, Delorier.
Delorier.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he takes that as a challenge, or when he says someone needs to step up, like if the guys, if there's a future captain and he's fielding that question, is he not? Would you expect him to say something to the likes of, I think I could take on more of a role, something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, these hockey guys never say I.
That's true. That is true.
I mean, unless they're pirate hockey player, and they go I.
That jokes.
I also think like if any one of these guys is worried about like, oh God, I really hope I'm going to be the captain. Like, dude.
Mom, they haven't named a captain yet. I still think I have a chance.
Like Henry Winkler from The Waterboy on the phone with his mom. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Am I even going to make a team this year, Mom? I don't know.
Did you send your care package yet? Yeah, this one's going off the rails.
While I'm cleaning my room.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, nothing more substance really to touch on that we haven't touched on already 5 or 6 times tonight. Hoagie, grace us with your dad joke of the week and make it a good one because you were late tonight.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right. What do you call a happy cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay?
A jolly rancher.
Decent.
All right.
Not your best, but decent.
I liked it.
I mean, I would have just said you shouldn't do one tonight after that 5 minutes ago thing.
I know, it's time for bed. Old man go.
All
right, listen. Before your wife tucks you in and gives you that warm glass of milk, old man.
No bedtime stories. I don't do milk. I have to pee in the middle of the night.
And a slap over the head for waking up the kids.
They make depends. Casey, let everybody know where they're going to be able to find you.
Hey guys, I'm over at Pod Street Casey, CASEY. That's Pod Street Casey on your Twitter.
All right, Hoagie.
It's kind of like Pod Street Casey, but Pod Street Hoax. Give it a follow.
Clever.
Good one. Better than the normal. So, all right, John, are you awake enough to give us your spiel?
I mean, it's not the awake thing now. I'm completely just off now.
Frazzled.
I'm crying, can barely breathe. Yeah, so you can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles. So yeah,
God,
I know.
also it in, dude.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. It's been
if
a rough
anybody
week.
comes away from this podcast thinking, "Wow, that was underwhelming," you're welcome.
Mr. Electric over there.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Pod Street
Speaking of
Bob.
Camp Tortorella, John's talking.
All right. I'm on Twitter, Pod Street Bob. John's on Twitter, Pod Street Gove. All four of us are on Twitter here at Pod SD Bullies. You can check out our affiliates over at Flyers HW, Flyers High and Wide, and the 5 Minute Major Podcast at 5 Min Major Pod on Twitter. Folks, until next week when there might be something to talk about, we'll catch you later.
Bye now.
Oh.